Welcome to the Unsung Hero Season 1. We talk a lot about mothers, their roles, sacrifices, and concern for the family. Many event happens all across the country on the occasion of Mother's Day. Somehow we forget to give the due importance to the unsung hero of the family, the father. Through this series, we are trying to understand the feeling of fathers. This is an initiative to bring hidden emotions of fathers who work hard for their children, but many times their efforts goes unnoticed. So today we have Mr. Dhiraj Sinha with us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Dhiraj Sinha. He is a multifaceted personality, travel and music junkie, literature enthusiast, and a social worker is what defines him well. Currently vice president at Capgemini, he is everything from an entrepreneur to experienced DJ. Sir, we are really lucky to have you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, sir, for for accepting our invitation.
My pleasure.
Okay. Sir, father is considered to be the unsung hero of the family. Many people feel. What do you feel, sir?
That's a good question. I think, celebrating father or mother, for that matter, is a phenomena which I think is a recent phenomena. Otherwise, as a parents, you do what you need to do for your family. Everyone has a responsibility towards their family, their children, and I think, if you really look deeper, people appreciate it. Your children appreciate what the father is doing. I think, mothers also appreciate what the fathers are doing. You just look at, the love and affection and the respect the fathers get. Now it may not be something where they do things outwardly, in my view. For example, probably my children cut more cake for their mothers for their mother than for me. But at the end of the day, I know that they love me, they have respect, and I guess most of the father would agree with this, that their family really cares for them. So to that extent, I don't think they're unsung heroes. But yes, I mean, because it has become a little more fashionable to talk about mothers, they talk more about the mothers.
Sir, means in the case of cutting cake, mothers are more luckier than fathers, right?
I mean, I enjoy that cake too, right? I mean,
It's just a matter of cutting.
who is cutting?
Okay. Sir, as a man, as a son, then as a father, as a son, what's your journey as a husband? So, how challenging and transformative is?
Very good question. I think, all these are different phases of life. And, there are obviously situations where you are playing all the three things together. My parents lived with me pretty much after their retirement. So I was fortunate to have them at home. My kids were very fortunate to have their grandparents at home.
Hmm.
And in that capacity, you are a son to your parents, your husband, your father, and you have to, in a way, these are different things, but there are a lot of similarities. At the end of the day, you are what you are, right? But the way you deal and the needs of each of the people, that changes over a period of time. And as a person, one also grows with period of time. So when I was a kid, I was son to my parents. When I became adult and the parents became old, even as a son, the role changes, right? There are different stages in life where things keep on changing. The relationship between husband and wife, before children, after children, as you grow older, as you spend more time together, as the saying goes, right, that after many years, the husband and wife starts looking more like brother and sister. They start resembling, right? And to an extent, you grow together. You start, after, let's say you get married at, say, 26, 27. When you are 50, 55, then you realize that you have spent more time with your spouse than without them. And that equation changes. Similarly, with your kids, as they grow, the equation changes. The way you deal with them when they're infant, they are teenagers, they become adult. So the key thing is, one, to be aware of that, of course, but not to over stress about it, not to think too much about it, not to try and bringing perfection in each of the role and say that I'm going to be an ideal father, I'm going to be an ideal husband, I'm going to be an ideal son. Because once you start getting into that idealism or the perfectionism, then you start making things complicated. So for me, it was always about being natural, keeping the thing simple, and playing different roles. And as I mentioned, even those roles evolve over a period of time. So that's what I think.
So means we have to go with the flow according to the age, according to the time, right, sir?
Agreed, completely
So,
agreed.
sir, how do you see the role of father in the child's overall development? How this role keep on changing, especially at the young age?
Very important, I think, because children derive a lot of characteristics from their parents. It is not only about what you speak to them or what you talk to them, but they are constantly watching you. So how you act has more impact. And not just the father, mother, some of the other role models that they have a big impact on them. So I think, of course, you need to strike the balance between, again, I will come back to, are you trying to be a perfect father? Are you trying to be a perfect mother? And in that case, sometimes we become something which we are not, and we stress about it. Whereas if we are natural, we know that with changing time, children will have different needs and the priorities. When a child is growing, when they're younger, they may look up to you in a different fashion. A younger child may think that my father is the strongest, but when the same child becomes 15 years old, starts realizing that there are other people, they become role model, they also realize their worth. So the way, it's not that the respect diminishes, but the things for which they were giving you respect when they were infants, or when they were toddlers, or they were growing up 7 8 years old, and the things that they will respect you for when they are 15 years old, when they are 20 years old, would change. So with that, parents also need to understand that for example, a couple of days back, my daughter sent a message to me on WhatsApp. She said, Papa, thank you so much for being not a nosy papa. I said, what does it mean? Must be something you want from me. Maybe somewhere you want to go and you want the permission. So you're just trying to please me. But the fact is, she said, look, many cases when we are doing something, even though we are staying away so many kilometers away and in the hostel, many parents try to control every moment of their child's time. And I'm happy that you don't do that. So that makes me responsible, but at the same time, I know that I have the freedom to do the things that I want to do. Now when she was 12 years old, maybe I was more concerned in what she was doing, versus now she is 18 years old and staying alone in a hostel. So things change with the period of time.
Exactly. Means at every period of at every stage of life, as child grows, they need some up to some extent some freedom, so that it may help to build trust between parents and children.
Agreed. And very rightly said, the word trust, I think that is the key.
Yeah,
That your children trust you and you trust your children, right?
exactly,
Because you also need to trust them, and once you start trusting them, they become more responsible.
exactly. Okay. Uh, many as you have daughters, sir. Many people say or feel daughters are nearer to their fathers. Is that so? That as daughter after daughter's birth, a father becomes more responsible or cautious.
So definitely daughters are very close, but it's not that daughter son, and there is a difference. The way I have looked pretty much the same way. Of course, my firstborn was daughter. So being a parent, first time is a very different feeling. I still say that if I have to recall one moment in my life, which is my happiest moment, is when I held my daughter for the first time.
Oh, how sweet, sir.
That is that will always be there. So certainly you become more responsible. Certainly you have things things. But many times, as again I'm saying, personally, I have never tried to overthink. uh, you have children, you will do things for them, right? When they are younger, they need your care, you will do it. When they are now on their own, they're living independently, living in a hostel, I do guide them when she has to consult on the courses she has to take or some of the things that she has to do. I guide. But I also know that now she is at a point where for everything she does not need my suggestion. There are many things, just to take an example recently. So she's staying in a hostel in Berkeley in the US. So her housing decision. Now, what I felt was that many times parents stress a lot about how they are going to stay, where they are going to stay, and start dictating. You should stay like this. You should stay with only two other people or four. For me, it was where she is comfortable. She will take a decision because she has stayed in the hostel for a year. She has made her friends. So she knows that who are her right roommates. She knows that how many people can she share a room, can she not share a room. I didn't dictate that decision. But at the same time, of course, the money has to go from you. So, the budget is there and some of those aspects are there where you tell them that, look, this is the boundary. So coming back to your point in terms of the father and daughter relationship, I think it is a very, very special relationship. Uh, and it's very close to your heart. And you definitely want your daughter, your son to be happy always and do things to the best of your ability. Sometimes certain things you do go in the right direction, certain times it doesn't go in the direction you were thinking it would go. But you continue doing things, and it's a special bond for sure.
So it's a common belief of people that father has to be the best friend of the son. How easy it can be and how challenging it can be.
It is certainly right. And if you look at one of the dohas I had read as a child, when it says, it is some Sanskrit, it's actually not a doha, it's the Sanskrit shloka, which says uh, that when your son is younger, you need to discipline him, right? When he is growing beyond that, then you need to nurture him. And then if he reaches a certain age, then you become the friend, right? So that is what is needed. You need to discipline them, you need to inculcate the right values. And once they have that, once they are growing, they need many help from you as a father. And then there is a point when they become friend, and maybe when you become much older, then they are the one who are supporting you,
Yeah.
right? So that changing equation you need to understand, and you need to go about it. What is friend? If you really start thinking, who is your friend? What is the meaning of being friend to your son? What does it mean? In my view, what it means is that when your son can share things with you without hesitation. Of course, as a father, the way my son talks to me, it will never be same as the way he will talk to his classmate. So
Yeah.
that understanding you need to have. But is he comfortable to share things? Am I involving my son in decision making? Am I asking things, making them responsible for taking the decision? And is there a comfort both ways? Is there a trust both ways? And I think if that is there, there are time which you can spend together and not try to run away from each other, right? I mean, sometimes the relationship turns where your son looks at it and wants to hide in a room or
Yeah.
wants to go out of the house or don't want to go on a vacation with the father or the mother.
Yes. Yes.
That is not the case. Then obviously it's a good, healthy relationship. You are not going to spend all the time with your children because they have their own life. You have your own life. So as long as that balance is being done, so the operative word for me is certainly the trust, and then the balance, striking a balance. Don't overdo it, right? And I can talk through some examples. For example, what is a friend? Do you have to necessarily go to a pub with your son to be termed as a friend? Not necessary. Not necessary. But in some definition, that could be the thing, that your son is feeling so comfortable that you're drinking together. But for me, that is not necessary to be called a friend. As long as uh, you are sharing with each other things that you want to share, you know that there is someone you can talk, someone who will listen to you, and someone who is giving you enough independence and decision making ability. I think what is needed to be a friend.
Actually, the very correctly said, sir. Meaning of friend does not mean that everything you can speak to your father in any language or in any way you want to be or the way you are talking to your friends. But it is what you should have transparency and trust so that you can easily share the things with your father as well as father can share everything or the things which has to be communicated can be easily so that it may give some bond or some transparency among the relationship.
Agreed. Agreed.
So born with a golden spoon, most of the kids in this era makes the proverb correct. When a father builds a strong foundation throughout his life, how important it is to inculcate the values to make them stay grounded.
I think it is extremely important. It is one of the most important thing. And as I mentioned, that born with the silver spoon, that definition itself is different for different people, right? So it's all relative because the challenges are different. The aspirations could be different. So, for example, a person may think a big thing just having a car and think that it's a big thing. Someone else, even if is inheriting an industry, may not think that way and stay grounded. So, this is one place where I think actions speak louder than the words. Children watch you all the time. They look at how you behave with others. Are you yourself grounded? See, for many of us in this generation, it is not that our children have been born with silver spoon. In many cases, even we have got the prosperity first time. So how do you deal with that? You are coming from a certain background. Now, let's say you are doing well in your profession, or you are an entrepreneur and you have a startup and you have earned a lot of money, whatever be the case, you have found that wealth which otherwise was not accessible to you. How do you deal with it? How do you behave? And if you are yourself someone who stays grounded, the chances that your children will also be grounded is significantly high. But there would be things that would be different. For example, you say that is it necessary that I need to ask my daughter to sit in the public transport all the time to make her grounded? Not necessary.
Yeah.
Not necessary. But someone may think that no, unless they have faced the real world, staying always traveling in the car, always taking a flight to go somewhere, probably doesn't teach you everything. How do you be street smart? So those things vary. But the key thing is it getting into their head? Are they not working hard to achieve their objectives? And as I mentioned, the struggles are different. For example, for us, the struggle was to become an engineer and then to get a job. That itself was a big thing. Today, the child may not stress about getting a job because they know that they will definitely have means to get a job. But maybe they want to be a tech entrepreneur. They want to start a unicorn, and when so the ambitions are different, and they may be working very hard towards achieving that goal. So the scale has changed, but as long as you have the fire in your belly, as long as you're working hard and you don't start taking things for granted, I think you're grounded. And they take the cue from the parents.
Sir, it's very correctly said. It's not necessary for every person to travel through the public transport. But yes, up to some extent, they must be prepared to go to the public transport, to travel through the public transport. If necessity arises, they has to be prepared, sir. Right.
And the more important than anything, I think, how do they deal with the failure?
Yes.
So whether it is public transport, whether it is anything, take anything. So you are a 4 pointer, you get always 4 out of 4. How do you deal if you get 3.8?
Exactly.
Right? So anything which does not go in the direction which you wanted it to go, and that outcome happens, dealing with that outcome is something which is very important. So ability to tackle failure and the definition of failure could be very different, right? That shows that you have that ability, and that is where, I feel that other than academics, a few other things teach a lot. My son plays cricket, and in sports, you learn very early in your life how to deal with the failure. You may have done very well in that season, but may not have got selected where you wanted to be selected, right? You're batting and a very good ball comes and you get out and don't score the way you wanted to score. So it is, one is, of course, they watch your parents. Second is also there are situations they need to get in where there is a probability of them dealing with the failure, and you may do it intentionally, but many times you don't have to really do it intentionally, but put them in different situations. So if they are being put in different situations, there would be certain situations where they will not get what they want, and they will have to taste the failure. And
Yes.
once they are able to deal with the failure, then they would remain grounded. This is what I think.
Right. Okay. Sir, you as a professional and you as a father.
Yep. So I think the way I always think that, it is all integrated. Uh, as a professional, if you're doing certain things, your children watch you. They see how you deal. For example, last little over 1 year, everyone has been pretty much working entirely from home. So many times kids know how you are talking in your office meetings, how you deal with your team members, what kind of stress you take, how do you deal with it. And these are also examples that you set for your children, right? As a professional, you have other forums that you participate in outside of your company, and what you do there, your children take a cue from those activities as well. So to me, these are not two separate buckets. Being a professional is not a separate bucket than being a father. To me, both the things kind of come together, and you learn from one and the other and you apply in some other place. So that's how I look at it. I look at it in a more integrated fashion rather than discrete fashion.
So both has to go hand in hand, sir.
It has to, and it has to be in a seamless fashion, right? I mean, I'm just telling you, I may have a very important meeting that I'm dealing with, but if there is an emergency message, or there is a call from uh, my kid's school, I will excuse myself from that meeting and take that call.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, there are cases when I'm working on a very critical deal, for example, in my work or a critical project. And that time, if my kids are saying, no, no, come with me for dinner, I will refuse that because I know what is the priority. So it is not that, when there is a challenge at home, even though I'm in office, I'm in something very important, I look at that challenge at home. Similarly, if there is a challenge at work, I will prioritize that over something which I have to do at home, as long as that is not an emergency situation. So you need to prioritize where the priority is needed and do it in a seamless fashion. I can't say these days we are working in a remote working fashion. We are working with global teams. Personally, I am not able to say that, look, 6 p.m. I will stop office work, right? 8 a.m. I'm going to start office work. So it continues. You take a break, maybe you spend 15 minutes with your children, then you again get back to work. And the flexibility at work, given the technology and given the way the world is moving towards more and more digital, is giving you that ability to integrate the things seamlessly. Of course, you don't have to overdo. It's not that, you will not have boundaries and you will blur the boundaries. I don't mean that. But at the same time, you cannot look at these two as entirely separate boxes. Yeah. So that's what I think.
Correctly said, sir. Sir, it is said father is the best teacher of the kids. But what life lesson do you learn from the kids?
Oh, certainly. I mean, these days kids are smart. And you really look at them, you see that how they are able to do multiple things, how they are able to juggle their time, how they're still keeping the focus, whether it is academics, whether it is extracurricular, whether it is sports, the way they are able to balance things and prioritize and stay focused. I have learned a lot on that. Specifically from my daughter, she juggles with various things. So managing her time uh, is very important, and the way she does it. With my son, because he plays sports, I've seen many things. Sometimes as a fun also, you compete. You say that the fitness session we will do together, and you compete with each other, right? So the focus on the fitness, some of those aspects as well, you look at them and you learn. I mean, someone was saying, it reminds me that you look at the Bollywood, and you look at the older actors, and you look at the newer actors. How many older actors had six packs in Bollywood, and how many are newer? Pretty much everyone has.
Yes.
And the new bunch is very professional. You don't hear the new bunch going late on the sets. You don't hear about the new bunch being unfit and whatever. So there are many things which the older generation is learning from them. Similarly, in our life, even though it's not Bollywood, it's a role, is a day-to-day life. There are things around managing multiple things. There are things around uh, being more ambitious, being more articulate, putting more focus on the fitness. These are all the things that you look at the youngsters and you learn from them.
Correctly said, sir. Before generation, before this young generation, they were they were giving lesser importance to the fitness, what this current generation is giving, although in case of diet as well as fitness exercise too.
Great.
So, sir, what message you want to give to the mothers on this Father's Day?
Oh, I can't take the chance of telling anything to the mothers. Jokes apart, I think the way I look at it is not about mother and father. I think a child needs both of them, and both of them together need to work in unison towards the well-being of their family. Any of them not doing things will things will fall apart. The families will fall apart. So it's very important that they come together, they work in unison, and uh, do whatever is the best for the family, right? And having said all that, it started with talking about fathers being unsung hero. Then you're saying message for the mother, but seriously think that given our setup, particularly in the Indian culture, Indian setup, still think that the mothers do more heavy lifting as far as the child and bringing them up is concerned than the fathers, right? And I deal with it in my family. My wife is an entrepreneur. She has a good business, but when it comes to uh, looking at home, if there is something very urgent, more often than not, she would take a hit on her work than I do, right? And I appreciate that. And when I have a large team myself in my work where women are working, I also appreciate that aspect, that if their child is sick, I never tell them that why are you taking off and why are you not asking your husband to take off. I never do that, right? I appreciate that all the women team members that I have a fairly large team at work, and many of them are women, and they have different responsibilities. So I always keep that in mind, that all these ladies are taking up much more than the men folks, and consider that aspect while work as well. So I try to consider that at work. I try to consider that at home. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but at least I'm aware about it.
This is the awareness, sir, which is helping nowadays female entrepreneurs or working females to grow. Uh, it's a fact. We being an Indian, it's a common phenomenon. If anything happens to a child, if anything is demanded from the child, mother has to go first. But fathers, they are doing their best.
Great. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I wish you a very happy Father's Day and a very happy Father's Day to all the viewers.